You're listening to Can You Dig It?
And we're your hosts, Amy Rose
and Alexandra Lakshmi Iyer.
We're bringing you gardening heroes, tips, and stories.
Why? So you can find your inner peace. Today, we're excited to be speaking with David from the Savory Institute. The Savory Institute equips land managers with innovative tools and curricula and conducts research on the ecological, social, and financial outcomes associated with holistic management. This research is used to inform policy discussions on the issues such as climate change, land stewardship, and food security. Their mission? To facilitate the large-scale regeneration of the world's grasslands and livelihoods of their inhabitants through holistic management. A native of Colorado with a passion for adventure and the outdoors, David brings a successful track record of organizational and financial management to the Savory Institute as manager of operations and accounting. David grew up in the open spaces of northern Colorado and fell in love with the outdoors during countless road trips, hikes, and fishing outings with his family. Prior to his work at the Savory Institute, David studied finance at the University of Colorado and contributed to several successful ventures, from a Colorado-based sports nonprofit to a multinational digital startup. A cornerstone of David's career has been working with high-impact organizations and providing them with the financial and operational clarity to increase their reach. Most notably, during David's tenure with the USA Rugby, the organization's financials flourished and ushered in a new era of growth leading up to the 2016 Olympics. As an avid traveler and sports enthusiast, when David isn't off touring the country or the world, he can most often be found at a local park, gym, or sporting event. A resident of Denver, Colorado, David also volunteers his time mentoring and coaching the young people of the community with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America. Welcome, David.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It's an honor to get some recognition for the work that we're doing and the collaboration that we have with Salesforce. So myself, a little bit about me. I started at the Savory Institute about 3 years ago, and funny enough, prior to coming on board at Savory, I didn't actually have any agriculture background, which is unique because I know that, Amy, you were describing a little bit about your passion for gardening and such, and the closest thing that I can relate to that is, trying to revive my grass every spring. But I came on board at Savory because I had worked at another nonprofit in Colorado, which is where Savory's based. And when I came on board, it was kind of just this flood of new learnings. I was learning a ton about the regenerative agriculture space. I was learning a ton about some of the issues that are persisting around the world. We're a global nonprofit, so it's been a really fun ride, to say the least. We work hands-on with ranchers and farmers to help them learn practices that are more regenerative. And in turn, they're creating a lot of outcomes that are really beneficial for them. So it's kind of that triple bottom line type of atmosphere where if you're doing things that are better for the environment, then in turn, you're going to, function better as a business owner. You're going to have better profits. You're going to see a more sustainable operation. And so we work with ranchers and farmers who are aware of kind of this benefit of doing things the right way. And we try to teach them and train them how they can scale that. And so we've come up with this strategy where we're actually working hands-on with different ranchers around the world who are then kind of training their own communities. I think we recognized that there's a really big shortcoming in us sitting in Denver, Colorado, which is where we're based out of, and trying to tell someone who's located in Wisconsin or in Oregon or anywhere in the world how they should be running their farm or their ranch. There's just a lot of holes in that strategy. You come across from just an ingenuine way. And how can you tell somebody that they're doing something wrong when you aren't familiar or you don't have experience in their climate. And so we have this kind of set of core principles that we teach, and we adapt that to the environment that the ranch is existing in. And through that process of them training people in their community, it's kind of like that hub and spoke model where they're training others, the word continues to grow because it just expands based off of other people training other people. And so it's very network based. That's kind of like the whole of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And, you know, I can get more into kind of the ethos behind why, but we'll just leave it at that for now.
That's really awesome, David. I love how your mission really combines, you know, agriculture with environmental well-being, but also with education and community engagement.
Yeah.
How do you use Salesforce to help manage all of that?
I knew this question was coming. I didn't know when, but we're going to jump right into it.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. So Salesforce, I was familiar with Salesforce before coming on board at Savory, and obviously tremendous potential in using a tool like that to just manage relationships, manage data. And when I came on board, you know, I think there as many smaller organizations or organizations who are smaller in size but big in aspirations like run up against, there's a need to create, or there's a need for that organization to be able to house the information about who you're working with and what sorts of projects are happening, what are the historical financial implications of decisions that you've made. Just having that database that can give you more insights into what's working and what's not, that's huge. And so for Savory, I think we've seen Salesforce really become this system of record for us, where we can find out what's someone's background and have they worked with us in any capacity before, and how can we use that information and leverage that data to build more relationships, to scale our mission further, and to get insights about what's working and what's not.
Is there anything that you couldn't live without in your system right now? Like, do you rely heavily on reporting and, you know, building those reports and dashboards? Is it context management? What's
that? Yeah, it's like it all builds off of itself. So it's kind of this total package. But I would say, being that we're kind of a network organization, just, you know, managing those different relationships that we have in different communities, I find that a lot of answers that I end up giving are just based around who is this person, and, you know, what's their relevance, what's their path forward. And so being able to pull that information into something usable, I suppose that would be reporting, but also just accessing records that can keep accurate information. That's huge for us. We are still working on our ability to mold the data into something that's really beautiful. So it's pretty raw, but it gets the job done. And I think that that's something that all smaller teams can identify with. If you don't have the big budget to make the fancy dashboards or the detailed integrations, still just having the information, that is key. And that's huge for any company that's trying to scale, trying to grow. We have been investing in our Salesforce instance recently, and a couple of the things that we've started to integrate are tools that we use in other areas of our business. So, for example, Evernote. For one reason or another, we have a lot of members on our team that are big Evernote users, and they love taking notes. It's like kind of replaced the docs that we probably used to keep in files on our computer or in Google Docs or anything like that. Evernote has just been this like, yeah, we've seen it become kind of this all-encompassing tool for a lot of people that work at Savory. And so now, like, having the ability to establish like a connection between that tool and something like Salesforce, it just levels up the usability of that platform, because now as someone's having a call with some contact, whether it's involved in one project or another, they can take those notes in Evernote and then they can attach them to that record. And it accomplishes a lot that you might not be able to, log that information in a useful way directly in Salesforce. So that's a connection that really jumps off the page for me. But we have other connections that are automated that are working really well too. Like, we have our donor management system integrated, and so we're able to record and track all the transactions that are happening from a fundraising perspective. And then as a part of the work that we're doing, we have products for sale that someone can take an online course with us to learn a little bit about what we do, but it's more just tease them up to reach out to one of those community manager type people that I was talking about earlier. But being able to kind of track the engagement in those courses and the sales of those courses is also really great. So lots of different integrations, as I'm sure you guys can relate to, but it's all been really helpful, and it's helped us to grow the usability of the platform.
Jacqueline from Sercante introduced us. Are you still working together? And what are your goals?
She's helping us reconfigure some of our lead processes right now. And so, we're going to be able to bring in more information and convert that into actionable data based off the work that we're doing together. And so, I'm hopeful that we'll continue to get to work together for years to come and make our Salesforce instance even better. She's been a huge help. Like, I'm considered the accidental admin of our organization. And so she's been guiding me, and she's been really helpful. It's been great.
I am curious, the pandemic that we're in right now has affected so many different aspects of our lives. Did the Savory Institute feel some effects from the pandemic? And if so, how have you weathered that?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely impacted us, just like it has every other business. Creates more uncertainty, and it's definitely been, in the early days, it caused concern. Obviously, the market sell-off that happened, was that going to, cause people to kind of seize up and not be as philanthropic? As a nonprofit, that's huge. We rely on those donations every year to sustain a lot of the programs that we're doing. But so yeah, like it definitely created some concerns. But I think one of the things that was really awesome is that we were able to kind of weather that storm, I think, a lot better than most organizations. This year we'll do better than we had any year previously, which is amazing. I mean, you can't really expect more than that.
So you just said you've done better this year than any other year?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Enough.
What's behind that?
I really have to say that I think that it's the way that we're approaching our work. So as a core, like as a foundation to that training curriculum that I talked about, that we're teaching people who manage land, it's all about thinking about the operation or the land that you're managing as holistic. And we've coined this term holistic management. So it's thinking about everything as connected, and holistic management being kind of the core tenet that we train people on. Well, that's been an extremely central part to how we run our organization. And so thinking about all of the moving parts that were happening at the beginning of this year, allowed us to reshuffle some pieces, and I think still create really awesome outcomes, because we were able to see the big picture, see what areas we were going to struggle in, pivot and invest in mitigating risk or in approaching other areas that we thought were going to be opportunities. So like a good example would be that online learning that I was talking about before.
Yep.
If we're not able to get out into the community as much and train people face to face, we can still accomplish a lot by training virtually. And so we invested in those online courses this year, and that's allowed us to, I think, still be able to reach people and show people the work that we're putting out there without actually being around someone face to face. And so holistic management, at its core has just, I think, given us a greater perspective on how we can manage turbulent times. And ultimately, that's kind of what we're training everyone to do. A lot of farmers and ranchers right now are finding themselves in really weird times because I won't get into the specifics of it, but there's a lot of conversation around how our soil health right now is decreasing, and we're losing a lot of topsoil. It's really impacting farmers and ranchers' abilities to produce. And so a lot of farmers and ranchers are finding themselves unable to meet the same sorts of production standards that they have in the past. And that's putting financial strain on them and on their families. And so teaching them holistic management allows them to kind of see that bigger picture, just like I was talking about. And so it's a great way to think of things as holistic and find a way through a tough time.
One of the things that you mentioned, David, was where you saw an opportunity to invest in an area that made sense for you right now, but also long-term, which is that online learning. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a trend that I've seen, not only in nonprofit, but across any commercial business, which is when things get tough like this, there is a tendency to pull back and to like cut all your costs and stop doing anything and just kind of try and weather the storm. And the challenge is, like, if you don't find those opportunities to invest, you won't come out ahead, out when we do get through this. You're going to be behind, really.
Absolutely.
So I think it sounds like you found a great way to invest in your program in a way that makes sense, but it'll still make sense too when you come out of this.
100%. I mean, when you think about the 10 years that happened after the Great Depression, more millionaires came out of that 10 years than any other time period in history. And so when there's great challenges,
found that opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's great opportunities with any challenge. So it's just finding those.
It seems like you've had a lot of growth over the last year. What do you attribute that to?
The single biggest thing that I hear the most is that people are starting to kind of wake up to the challenges that are out there. And the pandemic is kind of like a dress rehearsal for bigger challenges that are coming. We have some really insurmountable challenges that are coming down the pike if we don't make some changes. And so I think what we've noticed in our network and the growth of the network is that more people are starting to become active in finding solutions to the things that they're aware of, that they've been awakened to, whether that's, the wildfires that are devastating communities across the world and certainly the US, the people who are in some way connected to those sorts of natural disasters are asking themselves why. Like, what's the reason that this is happening now? And the more that we can start to just ask those questions of ourselves, I think the more that we're gonna seek out answers, and we're gonna get involved in creating outcomes that are gonna make change. And so I think as people have gone through kind of some self-reflection, be it, a little extra time at home or going out on walks more than you would because you're working remotely and you're able to, or whether it's because you've been involved in some sort of like crisis this year, like people are becoming, I think, more active in ways that's really healthy. And we've certainly seen that at our organization is more people are willing to give, more people are willing to, whether that's like your time or your money. And so I think it's really benefiting this overall awareness.
I'm curious, does the Savory Institute only serve like US land managers, or are you finding folks coming to you from different countries?
So we're a global nonprofit. We actually have what we call hubs. That's those like learning sites that are people who are working closely with us around the world. And so we have hubs on every major continent. And our greatest density of hubs is here in the US. But we have hubs that are able to provide kind of that adapted learning to people in every major climate. And so it's huge to be able to offer that and organize that, because odds are, if you are interested in this type of work, that we can connect you with someone who can get you started. And so that's huge.
It's great that you have that local expertise, not only on the soil and the climate, but also in, I imagine, like what they know works in their community, right? Whether, for any number of things.
Yeah. I mean, as a strategy goes, like, I think that it was key to being able to scale, because like I mentioned earlier, if you're trying to advise somebody on how to run their lives from a world away, it doesn't land very well. And it certainly doesn't provide a lot of the really important contextual information that's required to do something that's as complex as manage land, manage, a little part of the ecosystem that you might own. So I think it's absolutely necessary, and just goes along with the old adage that, you have to ask the right questions first before you can provide any answers. So that's...
I have the right question to ask you.
Earlier,
you were talking about, I got a little nervous. You were talking about like this being a dress rehearsal for, even more challenges in the future. Mm-hmm. So I'm almost hesitant to ask, but please tell me what, from your perspective, from the Savory Institute's perspective, what are our greatest challenges ahead as it relates to cattle's, farms, grasslands, etc.?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen, and I would defer to people with more scientific expertise than myself for actual predictions or projections. But I mean, as a general concept, like what we've seen is that we have this legacy load of carbon that's sitting in our atmosphere that's continuing to heat our planet, and it's changing the way that our ecosystem is behaving and causing some really concerning outcomes, like whether it's failure to be able to produce because of lost topsoil, or it's the natural disasters that we're seeing in hurricanes and fires and just manifestations of other things that are really destructive. We're able to draw a correlation between those two things. And so in order to adequately approach the problem, we have to really think about what is causing it. And if we look at that carbon that's hanging out in our atmosphere, certainly it's a cause for concern, but like the game's not over, that we can draw that carbon down into our soils using a few different techniques that have been proven to make land healthier and create kind of this this reversal and this unraveling of the situation that we have. And so if we can collectively decide that that's what we need to solve, I'm confident that we can find the way to do it. Change, I think, happens, in a variety of ways. It happens in big ways through policy changes and stuff like that, but it also happens on the grassroots level. And so we just need to be thinking creatively about all the ways that we can move the needle. And so that's what Savory is all about, is trying to find those gaps that we can create a little bit of change, move the needle just a little bit. And, before we know it, we'll get this ball rolling.
Do you have any resources or advice that just your regular gardeners like me should start to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of our work is focused on how can we create engagement at different levels, whether that's like different levels of expertise or it's different levels of capability. And so capability meaning, if you own land or if you, have time or whatever it might be. And so we have some programs that I think are doing a really good job of just creating different ways to engage. If someone's interested in actually becoming a part of our network and training others on how they can manage land regeneratively, we have a pathway for that. And we have a way for someone to either become a hub, like I talked about, which is that accredited kind of partner of Savory Institute, or you can become kind of a trainer and a voice to get out in a community and show people how it's done. If you're not to, that level of desire to get involved, there are other ways that you can make a difference too. One of them that really pops for me is that we have this program called the Land to Market program. And it's a way that we're trying to shed light on the producers that are actually healing the environment by giving them a megaphone to kind of communicate the good things that they're doing and differentiate the products that they're putting out into the market, so that people know that this product that I can buy is actually a part of the solution. And so rather than, I'll just like backtrack a step and say that if you were a consumer and you wanted to do something as simple as vote with your dollar, we have a program that we're trying to develop for that as well. And so that's working directly with major brands that are producing products that are differentiated with a seal, with a logo, with a stamp, so that as you go to the store, whether you're looking for something for dinner or you're looking for, a gift for someone, like a wearable, a cardigan, a boot, something made from like a leather material or a fiber material that comes from an animal, knowing what that animal has done. Has that animal actually been a part of something good, or have they been a part of the problem? And they've been grown on a feedlot, and they've been, the exact opposite of the model that we're trying to promote. So we actually have this cool thing that we just launched yesterday called the Regenerative Gift Guide. And that's actually got a collection of products that are from the brands that are involved in the Land to Market program. And so, something simple like that, putting together kind of this digital catalog of, I'm interested in actually, buying my gifts for this holiday season in a way that's going to support people who are doing things the right way. And we have a way to do that. Being involved in this type of work, it's provided me a lot of hope, actually, that there is a solution that's being built, and that there are a lot of really good people who are aware of things that are a problem, and are actively working to fix them. One thing that people can do is, I think, leveling up your awareness of what's happening is really important on any of the issues that we're seeing, whether they're related to climate, they're related to race relations, they're related to disease. Like, just knowing what's happening and finding information that can educate you is the first step. And so I would definitely recommend that people check us out. And we're at savory.global, and you can read a little bit about our work, and there are a bunch of ways that you can dive in and seek other opportunities to get involved through our website. That's probably the easiest, quickest thing that you can do. And if you want to, continue to get deeper and deeper, like, we'll find a way for you to accomplish that. We'll get you involved. So would love to see people just checking out what we've got going on and what other great organizations have going on in this industry.
I know with the good work of Savory Global, you've given all of us a little bit more hope today. Thank you so much, David.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Can You Dig It?
Please find us on Instagram and let us know what topics you want to hear about next. Alexandra here can be found at Xandra Gardens.
And Amy can be found at Master Gardener Amy.
Until next time, find your inner peace.